computer. Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, October the 5th, 2022. And I just want to welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, October the 5th. I just want to welcome everyone. We had a little technical difficulty, but it's all well. I'm so glad that you're here with us. As you know, the month of October is designated as, well, the first week in October is designated as mental health illness awareness. And I have a special guest who can really share and give us some highlights about this illness. But first, let me tell you a little bit more about her. Wait, you know the drill. Grab your coffee or your tea or your water and join in on the conversation. I would like to officially welcome my guest, Cynthia Mobley Howell. How are you today?
I am wonderful, Dr. Seegers. How are you?
I'm delighted. So glad that you're here as a guest. So thank you for saying yes as well.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the honor. I am so glad to be here. Thank you so much. It is a privilege and an honor.
All right. So let me share with the audience a little bit more about this phenomenal woman. Cynthia Mobley Howell is a minister, speaker, best-selling author, transformational coach, and a mental health advocate. She is the founder and CEO of How Well Are You, and which is dedicated to eradicating the stigma surrounding mental illness with an emphasis on early intervention, which is so crucial. Her passion stems from growing up in a household where all of her siblings were affected by severe mental illness. She embraces an integrated approach to wellness, which includes managing the spiritual, mental, and physical. Cynthia co-authored the best-selling book, I'm Still Standing, in her inaugural solo literary project. Crazy Didn't Get Me, Preparation for My Destiny, is scheduled to be released in January of 2023. And I can't wait to get my own personalized autographed book, Cynthia.
You will.
Yeah, she can be reached on her websites at www.cynthiamobleyhowell.com, and she can connect, you can connect with her with all her social media platforms. So with that introduction, welcome officially, my sister. It's so good to see you.
Yes. And again, thank you. It's so good to see you, Dr. Seegers. I'm just so excited. I just could not wait to sit with you this morning. And so again, as I stated before, it's an honor and a privilege, and I'm super excited to be here.
All right, me too, me too. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your profession, Cynthia, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. Oftentimes, when we talk about what we do versus who we are, we get that confused. And I'm not confused about who I am versus what I do, because they are two different things. So who I am first and foremost a follower of Christ.
Come on,
I
yes.
love to create. I love fashion. I love good food, and I love people. Even though people don't always love me, I still love them. I
All right.
love to read and I love to write. And I'm a very outspoken person, and I often refer to myself as a rebel with a cause. In other words, I break rules, but my rule breaking lends to being constructive constructive, that is, rather than destructive. My rule breaking creates positive change. So that's who I am. What I do is I'm a licensed and ordained minister for over 30 years and an international speaker. I am, as you stated, a best-selling author, and you already talked about my book, my initial solo literary project, Crazy Didn't Get Me, Preparation for My Destiny, which, as you stated, is scheduled for release in January 2023. And I am excited, extremely excited about that. Kudos, KP Publishing. I'm a transformational coach with a focus on helping others, especially women 50 plus, to live a better quality of life through considering a plant-based lifestyle. And I'm a mental health advocate dedicated, as you stated, to ending the stigma surrounding mental illness with that focus, yes, on early intervention. And yes, I am the CEO and founder of How Well Are You? I'm registered in the state of Florida as a health and wellness business. And we do embrace an integrated approach to wellness. This means that we believe in the importance of nurturing the mind, body, and soul. And our three core values are faith, integrity, and generosity. So God knew exactly what he was doing, Dr. Seegers, when he called me into ministry, because my vocation as a minister allows me to flow seamlessly in all of my other gifts and callings.
Wow. Now, won't he do it? Won't he do
Yes,
it?
he will. Yes, he will.
I know. I listen to you and I see how passionate you are about that. We just still kind of in the pandemic, but the last 2.5 years, many people were isolated. So how has that impact the mental state of mind when we were just kind of on lockdown, if you will?
Yes, yes. Isolation within itself is already not a good thing for the most part. And for the vast majority, the lack of being able to physically interact with others could be detrimental. Now, isolation can be voluntary or involuntary, but in the case of the pandemic, we know that isolation quickly became involuntary. And I believe that this lack of control of what many of us could or could not do dealt a huge blow to the mental state of mind. Many people began experiencing stress, anxiety, fear, sadness, loneliness. And I believe that some may have already been experiencing these things, but COVID exacerbated what was already present in them. So I would venture to say that, with this, these people being affected by the mental health disorders, including anxiety and depression, that the mental health state worsened during the pandemic. I was doing a little bit of research, and as of July 2022, there was an article released by the Biomed Central Psychiatry, and they reported that out of 1,052 studies, 18 of those studies revealed that 746 suicidal attempts. But listen to this, there were 33,345 suicidal deaths included in that financial analysis. So if that is an indication of how the pandemic affected the mental health state of individuals, there you go.
Wow, those numbers are staggering. Oh, I'm so glad you had that information. I don't think people knew that or even know about that, Wow.
Yeah, that when I read those statistics, it was staggering for me. I'm like, oh my God, because when you think about the deaths as far as suicide, and one that particularly comes to my mind is the young lady who I believe was a Miss USA, and I'm sure you remember the story, that jumped or allegedly jumped from the 60-something floor of her New York apartment, supposedly someone who quote unquote had it all. And so these types, we saw
Yes.
A lot of this, even though a lot of it probably was not reported, I'm sure there were a lot more. Obviously, according to these statistics, there
Mm.
were many, many, many suicides due
Wow.
to that. And even though we were not in the throes of the pandemic when this young lady unfortunately, allegedly committed suicide, but I'm sure that having been in the throes of COVID did not help the situation. Whatever she was going through, I understand that she was depressed,
Mm.
very severely depressed. So I'm sure COVID didn't help that situation at all.
Oh my, I know. You know, let me ask you this, Cynthia. Being a mental health advocate, what exactly is that? Can you share what do you do and how do you help people that's in that state?
Absolutely. I'll tell you what I'm not first. I'm
Mhm.
not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, but I have connections in my network with many professionals, licensed mental health therapists, psychiatrists, etc. So I often go to my network to get information whenever I need it. Whenever people reach out to me, as a matter of fact, I had someone reach out to me just last night via inbox, a man who is concerned about his adult son who is displaying signs of mental health issues, perhaps. And so, right now, as we speak, I'm actually reaching out to my network. As a matter of fact, I reached out to one of the people in my network yesterday who was a licensed mental health therapist to
Mhm.
find out, gave her a little bit of history of what had been shared with me, and then she gave me some feedback as to what I should do to help this man. So that is one of the things that I do when people reach out to me as an advocate. I make sure that I talk to them. I stay in the loop with them. I don't let them slip through the cracks. If I say I'm going to get back with them at a certain time, I make sure that I do. One of the other things that I'm doing is making an effort to connect with the faith-based community in order to collaborate with them on how we can be a support to those who are experiencing mental health issues, because I know, you know, as well as I do, being in quote unquote church, these are the types of things that we don't like to talk about. Yes, we're talking about it more now. I think the pandemic kind of was a good thing for
Mhm.
some people because it has brought it out. Taraji P. Henson, as we all know, who is a celebrity, when she started talking about it, it made it a more of a safe place. So I'm collaborating with the faith-based community in order to make sure that we're addressing the mental health needs of the faith-based community, because we come to church looking cute with our pretty hats on, our face beat, our Louis Vuittons, or our gaiters on for the men, and driving good and all of that. But a lot of us are jacked up. I'm also in contact with NAMI. NAMI is the National Alliance for Mental Illness. It's the largest grassroots organization in the US for mental illness. And I'm actually in touch with them to see what I can do to further my advocacy in relation to mental illness. So that's just a few of the things that I'm doing to further my cause.
Awesome. And I like again how you're sincere about it and you're passionate about it. I know as I was reading your bio, you have mental illness in in your family. I know we probably all do. You know, this is a thin line between sanity and insanity, and we don't want to
Right.
talk about that. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that, Cynthia? Or
Not at all. Absolutely. That's why I do what I do.
Mhm.
Dr. Mary, I have 3 siblings.
Mhm.
I am the youngest and the only girl.
Wow.
My others were obviously brothers.
Mhm.
My oldest brother, at the age of 31, was bipolar and committed suicide. And he was in a state mental health facility when he committed suicide. Reason number one why I do what I do.
Mhm.
Reason number two why I do what I do. My middle brother, who is schizophrenic,
Mm,
disappeared off the face of the earth over 2 decades ago, and we have not seen or heard from him since.
mm. Oh my God.
Reason number three why I do what I do. My youngest brother is paranoid schizophrenic. He has been institutionalized in a facility for the criminally insane, a mental health facility for the criminally insane for the past, get this, 35 years.
Oh, Cynthia. Wow.
That is why I do what I do. That is the basis of my book. If anybody wonders where my title came from, and I know some people get offended with that word crazy, well, take it up with God, because that's the title that he gave me. Crazy didn't get me. Preparation for my journey.
Wow.
Does
Yes.
it make sense?
Makes a lot
Does
of
it
sense.
make sense? Or preparation for my destiny, I should say.
Destiny. Mhm.
Does it make sense? We
Mm.
were raised in a very Christian home, a very Christian home. I know that's probably not good English, but it was, my mama was devout, my daddy was devout. So when my brother started showing signs of mental illness, we didn't know that it was mental illness. We thought that, boys would just be boys and they're just being boys. So we didn't realize what was going on. I
Mm.
believe when we did realize what was going on,
Mhm.
because of being in church and, you must not be praying hard enough. You must not be going to church enough. You must not be doing something right because you're a deacon and you're a deaconess, Sister and Deacon Mobley, and your children are out of control. So that caused them to stay silent. That's why I have the mantra, I'm not keeping quiet anymore, because my family kept quiet. We paid the supreme price. My
Mm.
brothers were not able to manage their mental illnesses because by the time we decided to seek help, which I believe in Jesus, I believe in prayer because I am a licensed and ordained minister, but I believe that my brothers needed professional help and they didn't get it. And by the time they got it, it was a little bit too little, a little bit too late.
Wow. I mean, when you talk about the church, how I don't think the pastors were equipped to, of course they prayed and they intercede and trying to rebuke the demonic spirits and things like that. But they, like you said, you need Jesus and you need a therapist. I've heard a
Yes,
pastor
ma'am.
say that, and it's so true. So, before it's too late, what about the stigma that people, like you said, they were embarrassed and thinking, oh, what will people think? But how do you remove that stigma? Is just through education or information, informing, what have you done to try to remove that? I know you're very vocal about it.
And you hit the nail on the head. I'm going to keep this conversation going. I'm going to talk about it even when people don't want me to talk about it. And
Mhm.
I can feel, Dr. Mary, I'm always posting on social media with regard to mental health because that is what I'm passionate about. I can feel it through the airways sometimes. People are saying, like, can you just please, not today? And I'm like, yes, today. Uh, Someone told me, someone very close to me, when I first really began doing a lot of posting last year. Now,
Mhm.
I've been talking about this since 2016. I can show you my first live video that I did on Facebook addressing mental health issues. And I was announcing my book at that time. Well, my book is long awaited because the manuscript was done in 2017. And so you can see how long that it's been for various reasons. But anyway, when I really started posting last year on social media about mental illness, a very good friend of mine said to me one day, because I was posting every day,
Mhm.
and he said to me one day, "Do you have to post about that every day?" I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm gonna post about it every day, about 3 times a day. And so, so people are still, even though the stigma is somewhat diminishing, but it's very prevalent. It's very much still there. People are still uncomfortable when you talk about mental illness. But in honor of my siblings, my 3 and only siblings, my brothers who should have been my protectors, my knights in shining armor. I was their little sister. They were not able to lead the quality of life that they deserve. Oh, I'm going to talk about it. So to answer your question, what I'm going to do is, or what needs to be done is, the conversation needs to keep going. And I'm going to make sure it does until there is no breath left in this little body of mine.
And I hear how you said the stigma somewhat is gone, but I think it's a cultural thing too, because I know other cultures, they're very active and pursuing that their loved ones that may have that mental illness to be taken care of. But why is it such a hush hush thing when it comes to the Black culture? I mean, have you noticed that?
Absolutely. Yes, I have. I remember when I was in Pittsburgh and I was driving Uber, and this was long before I started talking about mental illness. Matter of fact, it was like around 2015, because I didn't start talking about it until 2016. I picked up this young lady one day, Caucasian, and she just started telling me about, she's whatever she was. I think she was depressed. She takes these medications. I'm like, wow. I mean, and it wasn't like a thing for her. And it wasn't like she was trying to tell me her business. It was just in a conversation.
Yeah.
And so you're right. But with us, we want to be all hush hush. I think as a people, African-American people, we have been beat down so badly. And we've always had to feel like we had to fight our way to the top. We had to fight our way through things and for everything. We also have a sense of pride. And it's a good pride, but it's a bad thing. Pride can be good, and pride the Bible said that God hates a proud look. So right. If you're proud to the point where it's to your detriment, then we need to check that. And us as an African American people need to check some stuff when it comes to our pride, because it wasn't too long ago that we were in the cotton fields. It wasn't too long ago that we weren't sitting on padded pews. It wasn't too long ago that we couldn't be rolling in a Benz or a Rolls or a Bentley or whatever it is we rolling in. It wasn't too long ago that we couldn't live in the house on the hill. But we've gotten to a place where, as a people, we are so comfortable because we feel like we've made it. No, we haven't. We haven't made it till we made it into the kingdom. So I think we have pride, and it's good to be proud of who we are and where we've come from. But in regard to mental health issues, baby, you can be proud all you want, but you may just end up like my family ended up. And I'm going to keep referring back to my family, Dr. Mary, because that is my lived experience. That is why I'm here today. That is why I do what I do, because my house was hell. My family was going to church every Sunday. Every time the doors open, as I always say, my siblings and I were drugged. We were drugged in the morning. We were drugged in the noonday. We were drugged at night. We were drugged through the week. Anytime and they thought of something we needed to do to go to church, we had to go. We were doing all of that. And my family was going through pure hell in that house. It was the house of horrors, if you will.
Wow. And so we just need to open up our eyes and recognize that if you need professional help, get the help that you need, because it's so available now too, right? It's not like, I know a lot of institutions, even within the hospitals, they have those units that could help people to, to learn how to cope with that illness, just like diabetes, just like cancer. So don't try to put it like it's a special thing, and stop always trying to mock someone. I hate that when people do that. Kids sometimes will, do that with other children, and it's just so wrong. But it's got to be taught in the home how to respect not only yourself, but other children, other people as well. Would you not agree with that?
Exactly. Absolutely. We have to, and you said it earlier, we have to educate, and that is part of educating. We have to, especially since mental illness is so prevalent in our world today, and it's global, and it doesn't have any barriers, it doesn't have any color barriers, it doesn't have any socioeconomic status barriers, it doesn't have any gender barriers. It has no barriers whatsoever. Just like we talk about, as you say, other illnesses, diabetes, how to preventive maintenance, and high blood pressure, and all of these things. Just like we talk about financial literacy, just like we encourage our kids to go to college and get their education, and we talk about the importance of education, we need to tell people how important it is to have good mental health. And more importantly, as I said, we need to make sure and understand the importance, I should say, of early intervention. If my brothers had gotten the help that they needed when they needed it, their stories would have turned out much better. And you can live with a mental health issue. I know many people who live with mental health issues. They take their medicine, they see their doctors, they do what they're supposed to do, and they're just fine.
I agree. Let me share an incident that happened here in our state. In fact, it was in the city of Detroit, with the Detroit police officer received a call from a family member saying that their brother had a knife and he was mentally disturbed or mentally ill. Now, sometimes our police officers don't know how to, work with mental illness. To make a long story short, it was on the news locally here, and they were saying that they asked him to put the knife down. He didn't have a gun. And sometimes if you shout and scream at a person like that, it's already, mixed up in their mind. And so, but to the end of the story was that they shot this man about 30 times and he's killed, and so now he's dead. And it just grieved my heart when I heard that. I just started, shaking my head. Oh Lord, how can we help our officers to work with? Do they need somebody to work with them, like a psychiatrist or a mental health therapist, when they go out on those calls like that? The family did call saying, he was trying to hurt them or hurt himself, and he didn't have a gun, but he did have a knife, and so they asked him to put it down, and they're trying to show the tape of it. I mean, how can you even suggest how officers or people, and how can they treat people that's mentally disturbed?
That is a very good question, and I'm glad you asked that question. And that situation is so sad. We've seen it happen too often. In my hometown, it happened many, many, many years ago to a young man who was suffering from a mental illness. It was a situation with the family. They called the police, and he ended up dead. Everybody in our listening audience needs to write these three numbers down: 988. 988. In July, there was a bill passed that 988 is the number that is to be called whenever there's a situation when a person is displaying erratic, if you will, behavior due to a mental health issue. Why this number is important is because the first responders will be people who are trained in dealing with individuals with mental health issues.
Wow.
The police will be there as a support, but the first responders, when you dial 988 versus 911, see, when you dial 911, you're going to get law enforcement. But now, thank God, because of those exact situations that occurred that you just talked about, that type of situation having happened one time too many, we can now dial 988, and the first responder will be one who is trained in dealing with individuals with mental health issues.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. I know I didn't know that. So now I'm hoping my audience will write that number down and know that, because we've never been told that. We have not been. Is that nationwide, Cynthia, or is
Yes, the bill was passed and it went into effect in July of this year.
Okay, so it's really new, brand spanking new.
It's brand spanking new. So that's why we need to, yeah, exactly. That's why we need to get the word out. And it is no coincidence that you asked that question, because I probably wouldn't have thought to bring that up. So God is amazing.
Yes, yes, he is. Wow, that's
Mhm,
powerful, powerful.
mhm.
Oh, I mean, I could just go on and talk with you and have this conversation, but I think it's so vital. I may have to, in fact, I will have you back on at another time just to share and update how we as a people can really embrace this thing called mental illness, because if it's not for the grace of God, it could be you and I. I mean, it doesn't always have to be hereditary. I mean, things happen. What do they call it? Trauma, trauma can trigger something that will cause us to
Absolutely.
go to the other side, if you will. So
Absolutely.
thank God for, pray for your health and pray for your mental health. I
That's
used to
right.
hear the old people in church say, God woke me up in my right mind. I understand what they're talking
Yes.
about now. I mean, you know.
Yes. Clothed and in my right mind.
That has so much value and power in that. And I understand it now. Like, what are you talking about? But
Me
now we
too.
know, we didn't know, but now we know.
Mhm.
So are there any last words, encouraging words, and how people can reach out to you, Cynthia? Anything that I'll just leave it to you to how people can get in touch with you, how they connect with you, and just some encouraging words for our audience that there's hope yet, even in those that are not like we are, but they're, God can work it out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share some final thoughts. First of all, I want everyone to know this. You are not alone. Can I say that again? You are not alone. Statistics reveal that 1 in 5 US adults are affected by a mental health condition. 1 in 5. That
Mm,
means if you're in a room and there are 10 people in there, 2 people up in there has a mental health condition. So let me just sum it up with this acronym that God gave me, Dr. Seegers, and it's called IDA. That's IDA. The I stands for identify. Learn to identify unusual behaviors. If you see someone sleeping more than they've been sleeping or not sleeping enough, eating more than they've been eating or not eating enough, becoming antisocial, becoming belligerent, snapping out, just going overboard. When you see someone displaying unusual behaviors, we all know our people. So I know Mary gonna be a certain way if a certain thing happens. But if Mary is that times 10, then maybe we need to take a look and see if there might be something else going on with Mary. So we first must identify the unusual behaviors. Once we identify those unusual behaviors, and this was the breakdown in my family with my brothers. Don't deny. The D is don't deny what you're observing. Oh, baby, it's real. Ask me how I know. So you identify the unusual behaviors, you don't deny those behaviors, and then finally, the A in IDA stands for act. You need to act quickly to get that individual the professional treatment that they need. So again, that's IDA. You want to identify, don't deny, and act. Act promptly, act quickly. And I'll end with this quote. I love this quote by actress Glenn Close that says, what mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. End of quote. I'm Cynthia Mobley Howell. I am the CEO and founder of How Well Are You? And you can reach me at cynthiamobleyhowell.com, and that will connect me or connect you to all of my other social media or all of my social media platforms. You'll see different things on there. One of the things that you'll see on there is an excerpt of my soon to be released award-winning book Crazy Didn't Get Me, Preparation for My Destiny. I also have a t-shirt line for any of your listeners. The first 3 who will email me, you can actually connect with me through the website. If you go to my website and go to the contact me, if you contact me and say, I was listening to Wisdom Wednesdays podcast with Dr. Mary Seegers, the first 3 persons to reach out to me, I will send you one of my t-shirts from my t-shirt line that says, I'm not keeping quiet anymore, which is my mantra. Thank you so much, Dr. Seegers. It has been, as Les Brown would say, a plum-pleasing pleasure.
Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate all that you do. I'm gonna have you back on too, okay?
I'll be here.
All right. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. You
All right.
too.
Bye
All
now.
right. Bye now.